So if you're moving to Lexington, South Carolina, and you have no idea where exactly to live, I've got the best in detail map tour of the entire Lexington, South Carolina area right here. All right, so you're gonna wanna take notes on this video, and you're probably gonna pause the video at some point because this will truly be the ultimate guide to Lexington, South Carolina. And we're not only talking about the town of Lexington itself, we're talking about the entire county. So we're hitting on Irmo, Chapin, Red Bank, Lake Murray, and so much more. And we're going to cover pretty much the four major things that you need to know, because I know we love to all look at those big, beautiful southern homes. I know we did that before we came, but you can truly move to the wrong area, just like we originally did, to be 100% honest. Again, I'm not from here, so I don't take anything for granted. I give you all the knowledge that I have learned in the years, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And so for starters, we're going to talk about some traffic spots, right? I've literally had clients that have completely switched where they originally wanted to move. And I mean, if you're used to small town living, or those that are coming from bigger cities like we were, expecting a small town may not have considered this, and it may not be what they truly expected in this. And so that's the first thing you have to look at, and where you go through all the different major interstates, as well as kind of the roads that can cause some issues to people that are important to know. Next, we're going to take the list of the best place to live in Lexington from niche.com. They do their report every single year. I will take their list. I'm not allowed to steer in any way, but we will take that. And it does a really good job, to be 100% honest. It goes all around the map, shows you the best areas. Plus, I'll give you some others that might not quite be on this list, but I have had some clients that have found them as hidden gems because they weren't quite on everybody's radar yet. So, you know, maybe your money went a little bit further. And then we'll talk about the pros and the cons of those areas, so you can see if maybe this is not where you want to live. It's easy to continually add new places to lists that seem to check the boxes, especially when you're kind of just looking at the cost of homes. But the opposite approach is almost the best, right? Narrowing the list down. Otherwise, I promise you, I've had buyers come to the area and just truly spinning their wheels, overwhelmed with it all. And some of them have almost packed up their bags and left before we took them back to the drawing board and said, okay, what's most important to you? Let's help narrow this down. Let's find that certain area. And when we did that, it almost instantly found what they now call home. And so that's why this is truly important. And of course, we'll get on the cost of living in these areas, because people always ask, like, how far does my money go? Because of course, budget is truly important. Again, this is the ultimate guide to moving to Lexington, South Carolina. It's never been done like this. I wish someone did when we moved here. In the end, it all worked out for us, but let me give you a little hint here. All right, so before we dive into specifically the traffic, let me give you a preface of what Lexington is, right? Because obviously that's important when you're understanding this, because this can get really confusing when we have people reach out looking for Lexington, right? So you have the town of Lexington right here. Then you have what I like to call the zip codes that encompass Lexington, which is going to be 29072 on this side, almost this side of the interstate, and then 29073. So those are Lexington zip codes. But then you have what is Lexington County, which is going to be, I'll pull up the map later that shows you where this Richland line is, but basically in this general up to the river, I missed it, around here, all the way even out to Batesburg, Leesville, kind of cutting up here. So this is all Lexington County. So I'll erase this, don't worry. But that gives you an idea of the general area we're talking about. We will talk about some of those Richland County spots as well, even though it did tell us Lexington, because a lot of people do still consider it the Lexington area. And we'll talk about why a little bit later. And then of course, right here in the middle, you have Lake Murray, the 50,000 acre play place that is Lake Murray. And I'll dive into more of that as well. Like, what does it cost around Lake Murray? Because obviously that's another question that a lot of people have, but hopefully this gives you context of the area that we're talking about. For those first time learning about the area, of course, you do have Columbia right here, the capital of South Carolina. And we are just west of it on this side of the river right here. And so obviously one of the conveniences being close to Columbia. Now, when you're looking at the area, one of the things people notice right away, it's just this kind of blob of an area, especially even if you go up towards like Northeast Columbia. It's all kind of interconnected, right? There's not gaps where I know people have told me, and I've gone up to like Greenville where everything's kind of sectioned off, right? You have your Spartanburg, and then you kind of feel like you go for a little while, and then you hit Greenville, where ours is just this entire blob of area. And so a lot of times it can create this misconception of, perfect, everything's close together, but how far are these really areas apart? And where are the important things you need to know when it comes to the distances, right? Because to give you an idea, if you're, let's say, there's a neighborhood here in Chapin on the lake, Timberlake. If you are here and you want to get to downtown Lexington, while it seems like it's quite easy, if I pulled it up, it looks like it's about 26 miles and it'll take you about 45 minutes with no traffic, just to give you an idea. As well, there's a neighborhood out on the lake out this way here, kind of getting to the tail end, because like I said, it splits right about here. And if you were to take that and take it to downtown Columbia, same thing, it's going to take about 45 minutes. So again, a lot of people don't take this into consideration. They don't realize how far some of these drives are just because it does look so condensed. It is all pretty interconnected, but again, let's talk about those main areas. So again, you have Columbia here. So let's talk about, if you're working in downtown Columbia, you need to get to downtown Columbia. So you have a couple different interstates here. You have I-26 that runs down this way, continues down this way, passes I-77. This way is going to take you down to Charleston. This way up here is going to take you up to Greenville. Then you have I-20 that cuts right down the middle, right here. And so this way is going to take you out towards Florence. This way out here is going to take you out towards Aiken and Augusta area. And so they're the main interstates that run through. And then also you have 77 here that's kind of a pass through around the area. It was really nice when obviously they created that before my time, but this is like a speedway. I tell people, I don't think I've ever hit traffic on I-77. However, these ones right here is where you're going to run into some issues. Construction, right? When you talk about construction that's going on right now. So before I-20 right here, this was all widened. This was done within the last couple of years. This helped because this used to be 2 lanes, widened it to 3. Right now, they're in the process of widening this right here, because essentially what happens is it goes from a bunch of lanes at this interchange and drops down to 2, and it creates this bottleneck that creates all this traffic right in here. If you've ever driven through this area, you know, call it 3:30 on Friday, 5 o'clock, right? This creates a lot of congestion and traffic. And so they're in the process of widening this pretty much quite a bit of ways. And there was a section that's open, but they're still working on it. So by the time you move here, this may be open, and that's going to help out with this congestion here a lot. Because obviously, again, if you're living in Chapin, you need to get to Columbia. There's a road that cuts through that we'll kind of talk about a little bit more, Dutch Fork, but this is the 2-lane road too. And so this can get a lot of heavy traffic. And so the interstate is obviously, should be the saving grace for most people because of this 2-lane road that causes traffic. And again, because of the construction, it's helping, but right now it's not. So once that construction is done, awesome. However, the other big point, I'm going to erase this, is right here. So we have 20, 26, and then you can see this I-77, I don't know if you can see it, that dumps down into Columbia. They are in the process of redoing this entire interchange right here. If you've been to the area, you've noticed this. And they're trying to work around to make it not create traffic. You'll see they're kind of building over and around. So hopefully it's not like, hey, let's just shut this side of the interstate, tear it up, right? That you see in some areas. And so it's helped for a while, but you still do have these stretches here, like I talked about, because of this bottleneck of if you're coming this way and you're trying to get on 26, I was in it the other day and you're just sitting there and it's basically like this stop and go until you get kind of through this area here. And so that's creating a lot of issues for people, is that congestion right there in that area. And so that's why you have to take it into consideration. Okay, where am I living? Is this going to be an issue? Now, I will say, again, me coming from California and those you come from the big areas, I feel like we have a true rush hour. What I mean by that is this is not an all day event. Like some people know some areas, it's like all day, all traffic, all the time. You can't avoid it unless you leave at the most random times, right? It's gonna be school hour, and we'll talk about where the schools are in just a little bit here, because again, that creates some traffic there. So you have school traffic, and then of course you have your rush hour, your 5 o'clock. And then of course on Friday, I get a lot of people that ask like, it gets really congested in here. And again, because if you remember where I talked about heading down to Charleston, this also, if you've ever driven, it hits I-95 and I-95 going down to Florida that way. And so you'll see a ton of different license plates from different states. So we're kind of this crossroad of a lot of vacation traffic and a lot of travel traffic. And so again, that 3:30 on Friday, those types of things, as well as 8 in the morning isn't as bad outside of the school aspects. As again, we'll talk about where they are. But it's mainly that afternoon traffic, which add on to that too, is Lexington, Longs Pond right here. And then as well as Highway 6 right here. These exits at like 4:30, 5 o'clock, they get backed up so far. You'll see on the interstate. Just because you're getting off on this one's a 2-lane road. And so that's what causes it, because you got all these people trying to either go left or right, waiting for a light on a 2-lane road that gets backed up right here. And then Highway 6, it was just not planned the best when they redid this road, but they rechanged it to have a merge lane here. So I'm hoping that helps this one. But this one here, you know, until they fix that off ramp right there, that's going to be an issue right there. And so keep that in mind as you're kind of considering the different areas if you're commuting. Now, I know a bunch of people aren't commuting, and so obviously, perfect, it helps out a lot, but let me break down those that are moving around the areas internally, because let's talk about where the schools are, right? And so on the Lexington side, let's start there. So you have River Bluff High School right here. You have Lexington High School out this way off of Highway 1 around this spot right here. You have White Knoll High School down here. And then you have Irmo High School kind of right around where the Irmo thing is. You have Dutch Fork High School. I don't have the map names here. I know the general areas or the road names. And then you have Chapin High School right here. And then, of course, you have the elementary and middle schools. High school I point out the most because obviously the high school drivers, right? The middle school and elementary, there are a lot of people you'll see out here that do the pickup. We have buses, don't get me wrong. I've had a lot of people ask because they see the line at the elementary and middle school pickup. We do have buses here, but a lot of people do resort to, you know, doing the pickup. And so that kind of helps a little bit. Where the high school, obviously you have people dropping off, you have people picking up, you have kids driving, it just kind of creates a lot more traffic. As well, you're combining all the kids together, right? For every high school, there may be a couple middle schools and a lot more elementary schools where they're all combined. And so obviously this right here, this road right here, Corley Mill Road, this is a 2-lane road. You get a lot of traffic during school time at the end and at the beginning. On this side over here by Lexington, kind of some of these 2-lane roads going each different direction, you can get some traffic. Chapin, that's kind of a 2-lane road. They're in the process of widening that one as well. Little backstory to that one. We'll talk about it because we're going to talk about some of the industrial complexes. There's an industrial complex that the county built right here in this area. And if you go out there, there's no industrial businesses within there. And so the county tried to blame, hey, it's the road coming in. It's a 2-lane road. So the trucks they can't really access it. And so they're widening that road. That's why that one took priority, is my understanding, to be able to access that. But that'll hopefully help that accord as well. Dutch Fork, again, there's 2-lane roads out here. And so again, it can cause a lot of traffic during school time. So if you avoid that school time, and then same here, I forgot about White Knoll High School, Platte Springs Road, right? It's 4 lanes right outside the high school, but this way it dumps down to 2 lanes real quick. And so coming down this way, then you have an elementary school and the middle school. And so you can get a bit of traffic down this way. So again, that school traffic can create issues for those that are worried about commuting. So that's where all those are. Now let's talk about industrial complexes, because people ask, like, right, if I'm not working in downtown Columbia, where are there some jobs? And so I talked about Chapin's building this industrial complex. They built, I should say, but there isn't anything out there. They're hoping to get it. They built another one, to be 100% honest, out this way towards the Batesburg, Leesville area, kind of right in this direction right here. And they widened Highway 1 at that time, which we'll talk about in just a second here, the benefit of them doing that. But that one, there's like 1 or 2 in there, but it's still not full. The majority where you see it is right here off of I-20, basically this corridor right here. And so you have a bunch of different places in there. You have Michelin, there's a Michelin plant. They make the giant tractor tires. They make tires there. You'll see them come off the truck with these giant tractor tires that take up half the road, right? So you have that in there. There's US Foods. There's FedEx, Sornex is in there, Bentley Pontoon Boats. And so, oh, and then a brand new FedEx, if I didn't say that already, right in that section. So this is, and they're doing some expansion as well of it. So this is kind of the main industrial complex of it. That as well creates a little bit of traffic, like I talked about earlier with Longs Pond Road, because I don't think I drew this far enough down to Longs Pond Road. Getting off there when these people are getting off work, 2-lane road. And I can tell you, I've sat in traffic sitting right here as they're trying to leave, trucks are trying to get in, and everyone's trying to go their different ways. It can cause a lot of traffic right there. Let me talk about this more as we talk about the different areas, because again, we'll talk about pros and cons of these different areas and why people like them. Some of that is the roads that we're about to talk about a little bit more as far as the pros and cons. All right, now let's dive into those top areas according to niche.com. We're also going to talk about cost of living and so much more as we dive into this, and some hidden gems that have had people find that weren't on this list. Again, when we first moved here, we rented for a short bit. For those that don't know, we relocated from California. We weren't one of those that had a house, had all this equity. I was working as an EMT. My wife started a new job when we moved here. We didn't have a ton of money. We actually put ourselves in a ton of debt moving here. But so either way, we knew we wanted to live in the Lexington area, but when it came to finding a rental, once we found out we were moving here, we were just rushing around so fast, looking at different places that we didn't end up looking backwards, picking the best spot. Now, in the end, it all worked out because thankfully we're only there short term, but it would have been nice to have something like this, giving us a little more guidance of the area of where to focus on, especially for those of you that are jumping straight into buying and you can't just break a lease if it doesn't work out, right? And I know so many that reach out to me that just want to hit the ground running looking at homes, and they're so caught up in looking at these beautiful homes that they miss so much of the area and what is important to them. And so I actually did create a self-guided tour for those that are planning on coming out and maybe not ready to look at houses yet, but you want to get a feel for the areas to help narrow it down for you. So you can grab that, help check out the area on your own pace, but otherwise let's dive into those top areas in Lexington, South Carolina. All right, so let's talk about the top areas that niche talk about. And I'm not going in the entire order is like 1 through 5 and all that. I'm going to just hit them as we kind of make our rounds around the area. And so we will get started though with Lexington either way, just because obviously this would attract a lot of people to this video is the Lexington area. And again, like I said, it encompasses a lot, but one of the big things is you look at a lot of these school rating sites, and both of them do, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but highly rated schools, one of the big things about the entire Lexington area. And so you have, as I talked about earlier, River Bluff High School over there, and then you have Lexington High School down this way. And so obviously that's a big draw to the area. Of course, people also love this downtown Lexington area. And this is super cool because this wasn't as neat as it is now when we moved here. Right? There wasn't as much happening downtown Lexington. A lot of stuff we did, we went to Columbia, but over the time it's grown so much. And so now you have the Ice House Amphitheater. You have all these coffee shops, restaurants, and new ones coming in all the time. They just redid the Virginia Hilton Park. And so it's turned into this awesome downtown that people just fall in love with when you think of like, I want a downtown where we can go with the family, go to a movie in the park or at the amphitheater. We can grab dinner, we can grab ice cream. Like this is that spot right there. And so this is what a lot of people love. And I'm going to be doing a vlog tour of this area. I've done some of the other areas that we're going to talk about, but I've done a vlog tour, or I'm working on one. By the time you watch this, it may be out, but that'll be out in the next couple of weeks, where I go to all the different parks, show you these restaurants, show you the lake, and all those things that people ask about. And so again, that's one of the things that people really love about Lexington is that. As well, one of the big things, and this kind of brings up traffic, going into a little bit of the cons, is pro and con. Highway 378 right here, you can see. Basically, this is just a line of every single chain store you can think of, right? Home Depot, Walmart, Kohl's, Staples, all those different places. Target down here, Home Goods, all right in here. Convenient because it's all right there. The con of it is it creates a bunch of traffic down this road, right? So that's a pro and a con right there. And so a lot of people, I know I've gotten stuck in this traffic right here coming back 378 or this way. And it's just obnoxious, right? Because it all kind of bottlenecks right here. So traffic, that's one of the cons that people do run into of living in this part of Lexington. If you live in some of these areas, some of these neighborhoods, and we'll talk about some of them, the Saluda River Club, obviously that's a big one that you'll want to check out if you're in the area. A lot of people, especially those coming from California, right, that grew up in these master plan communities like I did, right, where you had the community pools and all these sidewalks everywhere and walking trails. Saluda River Club is that place, and it's pretty unique. There's not much else like it in the area. Or you have some of these more established neighborhoods with the larger lots. You have Governor's Grant out here, right, down this way. And so those kind of neighborhoods, now, if you're living in them, right, does it create traffic coming out? Now, obviously, again, this depends on your job, what you're doing, your daily life, of what that's going to look like. So that falls into the cons of some of the things that people find. But of course, there's so many pros to it that a lot of people do love the area. Now, let's talk about pricing. And so in the Lexington area, I broke this down a couple different ways, but in this one specifically, I picked that Lexington High School and River Bluff area. And to give you an idea, it was about $400,000 on average to live in this area. Obviously, some lower and some significantly higher. And I did rule out any of the properties on the lake because we'll talk about lake specifically. So this did not include those $1 million homes on the lake, $3 million homes that would pull those average up. This is homes off the lake, maybe lake neighborhoods, but not specifically on the water. And it was average about 400,000. Again, that kind of gives you an idea of the Lexington area. So let's move on to the next one, which is going to be Seven Oaks. And this comes up a lot. And I kind of correlate Seven Oaks, Irmo, to me, the same, right? And really in Seven Oaks, you have this neighborhood called Whitehall. And to give you an idea of this area, those that love it, older established neighborhood. A lot of these were based on no HOA. So you have a lot of character in these houses, tree-lined streets that are well established. And so a lot of people just love this as well. There's another thing that we'll talk about in just a bit. And part of it is your money goes further. But again, we'll talk about what that pricing looks like. As well, the town, kind of a pro and a con. You have Irmo Community Park, which is phenomenal. They have a ton of events there. They have an amphitheater within it. It's a massive park. You definitely want to check it out if you're considering the Irmo area. However, they don't have per se a quaint downtown like Lexington does. There's not like this 2-lane road where you come park your car and walk to all the different shops and things like that. You have the mall over here in the Harbison area. You have Costco. You have this line of just every chain store you can, more so than 378, right? Talking about the Olive Gardens. We're talking about Hobby Lobby, just so many different things over on this side. And then the one and only Costco, like I said. And so you have a ton of that shopping over there. And so a lot of people like it just because those that enjoy shopping, like this is the prime area. Like I said, a ton more than you have off of 378. And so a lot of people like that. But again, the con is a lot of people are like, well, I wanted more of a quaint downtown. It's a little busier than I thought. But again, a lot of people do love those established neighborhoods. And we'll talk about another area up here that a lot of people do love. It's kind of one of the secret areas that I've had a lot of people start to find more. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit here. But another thing to know in Irmo that I talk about is floodplains, right? Now, I don't want to entirely scare you away from Irmo when I say this, because I've said this so many times. This is not a majority of the properties, right? It's probably 25% or less. But to give you an idea, right, Lake Murray is the dammed up Saluda River. And so you have the Saluda River that runs on this side, and you have all these creeks that kind of run off on all different directions on the bottom here. And some of these houses that back up to these creeks are in floodplains. And we had back in 2015, 1,000-year flood, and some homes did flood. And so that's why it's like, it's not like one of these things that it's like, whatever. Like my buddy had a flood insurance his whole life and nothing ever happened. Like there were houses that flooded, you know, more so in Columbia, but it does happen. And so, like I said, it's about 25% of the houses. And I bring this up because the other pro about it is going to be, like I said, the your money just goes a bit further out there. But if you happen to find this like phenomenal house that for some reason is significantly cheaper than every other one in the neighborhood, because it's not like entire neighborhoods. I listed a house in this Whitehall neighborhood in Seven Oaks, and literally the house across the street had to have flood insurance, and the house I listed, I didn't, just because of the topography out there. And so if randomly you're like, why is this house so much less than this? That may be why. And obviously we can help you with this. If you're like, Brandon, I want to live in Irmo, but I don't want a floodplain, we can help you kind of isolate which those are. But again, because some people, it's public information. You can find where the floodplains are. This isn't like hidden to real estate agents, but a lot of people, I think, look at like, the Zillows and the Redfins, and they'll give like a rating of it. But you actually have to go to FEMA site, and then they will have all the floodplains on there. But so either way, that's the pros and cons there. But let's talk about pricing, because again, this is one of the areas where your money just goes quite a bit further in this Irmo area. And so what I found, and I did the Dutch Fork where we talked about in Irmo High School earlier combined, came with an average of about $296,000. So again, significantly less than what we talked about in the Lexington area. Now, with that said, you have areas, and one of the areas I'll talk about a little bit later in here, like Ascot, where their average is around $760,000. So everything in there is not low budget, I guess is the best way to put it. There are some very sought after and highly expensive areas in this, but obviously that average, your money just goes further, and that's what attracts a lot of people to this area. Next, we're going to talk about the Chapin area. A lot of people like Chapin, the buyers I've had, because it's this small, not densely populated area like Lexington and Irmo is. Lexington just grew faster. Irmo was established earlier, like I said, 60s, 70s, 80s, these older houses established. Lexington kind of has been growing since, and then Chapin's kind of been behind with the growth of that. And so it's not as densely populated as the Lexington area. A lot of people like that. Now, with that said, the con to that is you still got a lot of 2-lane roads in here that wind because of the way the lake is set up this way. And so you got these 2-lane roads that run through here. And so there's some people that like, I don't care for these 2-lane roads, right? And we'll talk about that more later. But a lot of people just love the quaintness of it, of just, no, I like that. I don't like this hustle and bustle that I feel like this constant traffic in Lexington and Irmo and all these different places. But again, you have all these lake neighborhoods and lake access points and things like that. So people absolutely love this area for it. As well, the downtown is growing quite a bit with different restaurants and shops and things showing up in the area that people just, like I said, enjoy a lot more of that mom and pop, right? You have less of that chain stuff over there. It's local Ace Hardware. It's going to be some local restaurants and shops. It's not your Olive Garden, right? It's not your chain Outback Steakhouse. It's, the local Chapin Chop House, right? It's those kind of things that people really attract to Chapin about versus the other. Now, again, this is an area where I talked about earlier with the traffic. I had someone that was like, Chapin's a place. They loved that feel, but they had a lot of doctor's appointments in Columbia. And all of a sudden, like I said, this 2-lane road here, and at the time, 2-lane down the interstate. And they're like, this is just too far from Columbia for me. And so that's where you have to kind of weigh those things of what's most important to you. Each area has its pros and cons. And so it's kind of like, okay, what does my daily life look like? I had people that work from home. They're like, I don't care. I don't have to drive to Columbia that often. We're not doing that. So Chapin was perfect for them. I've had others that, they were working closer, and it was like, it's not that bad of a drive. I'm okay with it. And so those are the perspectives that you have to take in when you're relocating to the area. But again, that's the Chapin there area as well. Again, still have those highly rated schools. Most of them here in the Lexington area are going to land into that with Chapin High School out there. Next, we're going to talk about the Oak Grove area. And this gets sought after because of the convenient location. I know a lot of people that buy here because super close to Columbia, super close to the interstate as well. This line right here kind of creates the line for zoning for River Bluff High School. So they're going to River Bluff High School. And so it creates a lot of desire in this area. Now, what I've noticed is that in this area, it's older neighborhoods. A lot of these older neighborhoods, you have some newer, similar to Irmo, but it's less of the tree-lined street. That's what a lot of people have told me. Now, a lot of this has to do with the topography, and not the topography, the soil. And I'll talk about this a little bit now. And so we kind of split between what is called the sand line as well as the Piedmont. And so it's like a weird split right here in the middle of Lexington, this way. And so the south side is going to be all sand and this side is going to be the all Piedmont. And so when you're in this Piedmont area, it just seems that those trees just flourish a lot more. On the sand side, when you're near water, they do, right? So we live on the south side and we have wetlands behind us and there's tons of trees in there. They grow around the wet areas. You know, you go down to even the Congaree swamp down this way on the river and there's just trees everywhere, right? And so when you're near the wet areas, it does. But some of these other areas, it just doesn't seem as densely tree populated as per se Irmo does in up this direction. I don't know if the soil has anything to do with it. I was just thinking about that as I was working on this video, noticing that. And so you'll notice that a bit more. There is still tree-lined streets, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't seem, my clients have said, Irmo just seems to fit more of that, as well as, of course, the proximity to all the shopping that we'll talk about a little bit more later. So Oak Grove is another area that, again, similar to Irmo in a sense, and it goes to White Knoll High School. And then next, we're going to talk about the Red Bank area, the south side of town. And so this is one of those areas that I've had a lot of people attract to just because you're still in the Lexington area and your money just goes a bit further. This one you're going to be going to, and we're combining these two, Gilbert High School as well as White Knoll High School right in here. And so those are going to be still Lexington one school district, and these are the zoning areas. But your money just goes further down here. An interesting backstory, we'll talk about this a little bit more when I talk about some of the bonus areas. When I first moved here in 2015, I worked for the county, I was the EMT, and then we used to do the state of the county, like the county would come and they would tell us like the state of what was going on with the county. And with that, we were told everything was moving west. Everything's moving west. And like I said, they widened Highway 1 out that way. Highway 378 is a 4-lane highway. The hospital even bought a piece of land out that way, and everything moved south. The developers went south. Now, we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about West Lexington, get a little ahead of myself, but everything went south. And so this has become one of the desirable places because right here on the south side of town, couple reasons, you have Walmart, you have Lowe's, and then recently Publix, Chick-fil-A across the street. They have Lowe's grocery store allegedly coming. They're going to have, Planet Fitness, all kinds of different things in this area. All these, right? This has just been an entirely growing area as the developers have moved. Plus you have neighborhoods like Bluefield, brand new construction neighborhood. I've talked about before, I've sold more homes in this neighborhood than any other neighborhood just because of the price point. Back in the day, it went from 180,000 up. Now, obviously that price point has jumped to probably closer to 230 and up, but you had these people that 230,000 to get a brand new house, like sign me up, right? And so a lot of people like that as well. You're only about 10, 15 minutes downtown Lexington. And I had, like I said, I live on the side of town, had some neighbors and friends that they work towards Columbia, and you have Platte Springs Road that runs right here that you can take to Columbia. And so it's kind of this convenient, I don't have to go all the way down the interstate. You can, don't get me wrong, but there's times of the day where it's like, this is much easier to take this. You will still get traffic in the afternoon, don't get me wrong, but a lot of times it's not as bad as the interstate, especially now because those who've been watching the area, they opened a charter school right here. And this charter school got real popular when it came to the area. A lot of people wanted that charter school. But the location sits right here on the exit of the interstate. And so when it first opened, my goodness, those of us that were trying to get to the interstate, literally from about, call it almost Platte Springs Road to the interstate was stop and go traffic. Something that would normally take 10 minutes to drive down was taking 45 minutes just to get down. And so it was like, this is ridiculous, right? Now, the school did stuff to help mitigate that, staggered things, did a lot more school bus pickup. But a lot of people that worked in Columbia was like, I'm just going this way. And it saves so much time. And I know myself, if I'm going the back way, to different areas over here, I come this back way as well. And so that's why a lot of people like that area is because, again, of that, conveniences to that. And again, like I talked about, the price point there, and we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about one of the cons that I've had a lot of people tell me that, no, we're not moving there because of. But price point in that area on average was about 280,000. So as you can see, relative to this side of Lexington, you got the pros of that price right there. You have neighborhoods, right? Like I talk about Bluefield, another really popular neighborhood I had a ton of people buying is Longview. Right over here, neighborhood of Longview, Stanley Martin Home. Every time that for those that have been watching, I have people that watch my videos every week that know about this neighborhood because they've been watching it, right? Every time a new phase comes up, boom, it sells out. It sells out so fast. I had probably 3 or 4 people buy the last time a phase opened, and it sold out less than a year. And so they're working on that next phase, and it's going to open. But people just love this neighborhood of Longview right over here. And so again, on this south side of town. Now, the con, it gets rural fast. I've had a lot of people say that, right? You basically got this line here, and then also the next thing you know, it's rural. And what do I mean by that? There's a couple different types of rural. You know, you got trailer parks down here. You got trailer parks down here. You got mobile homes. You got a lot of this stuff was done before zoning, right? And so you'll have a church here, auto body chop shop here, mobile home park here, mobile home destruction place. I don't know what they're doing there, right? Just a bunch of rural places around there. And a lot of people aesthetically are like, this is not for me, right? They like that suburbs where it's everything kind of is cohesive versus just randomness. And so that's the con that you get from a lot of people on this side of town. When they drive over there, they're like, yeah, Brandon, this is not the side of town for us. And then again, like I said, it gets rural. A lot of people, the builders are starting to expand out further, mainly because a friend that works for the water company. And so the high school down that way they were having septic issues. So they ran sewer line. As soon as the developers got word, it was like, give me some of that, right? And so they started building. Well, pretty much once you pass this line here, it's a whole lot of nothing. Right? You may run across a Dollar General or a gas station that everybody goes to get, most of their stuff. And it's just like, we're in the middle of nowhere. And I have a lot of people that find those houses and they go, what a good deal. And they drive out there and they're like, where did civilization go, right? They're used to everything being within proximity, and it's not that way. And so that again is a con on that side. Now let's talk about some of the bonus areas before we dive into living on Lake Murray. So again, I talked about a little bit earlier is when I first moved here, they said everything was moving west, and it didn't. Don't get me wrong, there's some stuff out there. There's neighborhoods within here that have been here for some while, established neighborhoods that people love, some lake neighborhoods, things like that. But everyone just thought it was going to pop off and it was just going to take off. Like I said, Lexington Medical Center literally bought land off the interstate right here because they were under that impression too. And the county literally said the new center of town is going to be right here because everything's going that way. And it didn't happen. And a lot of that is because right in here, you have a ton of farmland. And I'm not talking about Tennessee and Texas where you got horse farm fences and horses galloping along the way. I'm talking about true farming, right? They're farming crops, they're farming vegetables, they're cotton, all kinds of different things out this way, all these different farms down this way. And so the land just never went up for sale. And so the developers couldn't get their hands on much. And for a long time, I was always told too, everybody knew each other. So if this guy here was selling, he'd sell to his buddy over here. So the developers couldn't come in. Well, the day has come where that somewhat broke loose. There's literally right in this corridor, a little further down, there's 3 developments about to pop up. And I'll talk about this in another video, new construction update I talk about. 3 developments popped up on almost one corner right here. You've had 2 others that kind of came down this way. And you have another up here on this way. And so it's finally broke loose as well. There's a rumor that going past Lexington High School that they're about to build a shopping center with Target and some other shopping there. So this area finally has started to take off. And so this has kind of been a bonus area for people for a long time because again, everything moved south and everyone was going south. A lot of people liked this direction out this way, the west side of Lexington and even into Gilbert, especially because like I said, Highway 1 widened. 378 4-lane highway. So I had some people to give an idea that were like, Chapin is our place. We want to live on the lake in Chapin. And we looked in Chapin. And finally, like, you know what, Brandon, like these 2-lane roads, it's just too dark for me. They fell in love with West Lexington because they could get a lake neighborhood out this way in some of these coves out here. And they're like,
we may have a 2-lane road for a short, but then we're on a 4-lane highway back to Lexington and all the shopping. Like that just more fit theirs. So that's why West Lexington has become a lot more popular over the recent times because of that. And we're starting to see the developers pick up out there as well. So it'll be interesting to see as that growth happens during that way. Now, let me talk about one last bonus area that I kind of alluded to before we dive into Lake Murray is I've had a lot of people fall in love with the top side of Irmo. And the reason I bring that up is because I talked about before, right? Seven Oaks was on that niche.com. 60s, 70s, 80s homes, some 90s in here, things like that. And a lot of people feel it's kind of pretty densely populated. You can almost see on Google Maps where they show this almost densely populated area right here. Now, up on this top side, this is still a lot of just tree-lined streets. Me coming from California felt like I was in the mountains, right? Just tree-lined 2-lane roads, not a ton of traffic back there. And there's neighborhoods like I talked about before, Ascot, as well as there's some brand new neighborhoods. Stanley Martin has a brand new neighborhood out there that sits on the river. And so a lot of people are liking this area, and it's for 2 reasons. It kind of checks the boxes for the what I like to call the divided couple, where one person is like, I love shopping, I want to be within 10 minutes of stores and all that, and the other person is like, I don't. I want to be in the middle of my own country, in the land. Like I don't want to see my neighbors. I want to be able to just walk out and here's the trees and things like that. This area checks that box. Because again, like I talked about, you have all that chain shopping right here, and you take this little 2-lane road and all of a sudden you feel like you're in the middle of the country. That Stanley Martin neighborhood I was talking about, pretty much all the houses back up to green space. They don't back up to another house. So it's like you walk out your backyard and you're staring at trees into the wilderness. People just love that concept. And that's why I said this is another one of those hidden gems that more and more people are coming to, is this section right up here. Now, I talked about before, this section is split and we're talking about Lexington versus Richland. You can see Lake Murray of Richland right here. And let me switch the maps here. All right, so as you can see on this map here, this is the line for Richland County. And if you've ever looked online, you've probably noticed this school district over here is called Lexington Richland 5. And that's why, because Lexington and Richland share this school district, right? Chapin High School, Dutch Fork High School, Irmo High School, these all in here, they share, Lexington and Richland share it. And so this section here is Richland County. Now, why do I bring that up? Richland County, to be 100% honest, their taxes are a little bit higher than Lexington County. Not significantly, but there is a difference. Now, with that said, Richland County also includes trash within their taxes. And what do I mean by that? So this is different for a lot of people coming to the area. I've noticed this more and more. So unless you're in the town areas, town of Lexington, the actual town borders, outside of that, trash is separate. You can opt into it. You can pay a trash service. And usually there's only one for the area. People always ask me, is there a choice? Pretty much no. Here's the trash service. Do you want to pay them or not? I say or not because you can take your trash to the dump. I've talked about this in other videos. So in Richland County, trash is included. You get a bill every year, as well as you get your tax bill, you get your trash bill from them as well. You don't get a choice out there like you do out there. So there is a perk to it that you get those included, but this part here is Richland County. So when you're looking online, looking at tax estimates, you might see their taxes are a little bit higher. Let me switch back, and it brings up another point as we dive into Lake Murray here and talk about the pricing and everything on there. So our taxes are based on your primary residence, right? I've talked about this in so many videos, but because I just talked about taxes there, it's really important because I know a lot of people, when I say, look at the taxes on Richland County, they look on these online websites and they're like, hey, Brandon, like I'm looking at these taxes and this house is really high. Like, I don't think I want that house. They got super high tax bill. I don't know what's going on in that section. Ours are pretty comparable within county. Like there's a little bit of variance because we have a mill rate that's based on your school district, but as long as you're in Lexington County, they're pretty comparable. There's not much variance, right? As long as you're in Richland County, there's not much variance. The trash rates are different. There's some neighborhoods where they actually take your bins out to the street, but they're relative to it. They're not significant jumps. If you see significant jumps, typically that's because it's a rental property, it's a secondary residence. That's why. So if it's 4 to 5 times as much, it's not because that area has super high taxes. It's because they're probably having as a rental secondary residence. And so don't want to get that twisted when I say you might see the tax a little bit higher in Richland. That is going to be different than the difference. Like I said, if it's 4 to 5 times as much, no, it's like Richland County is not even double of what Lexington is. It's like I said, it's a little bit of an increase, but it's not even double of what it is. So if you see triple, quadruple, that's secondary residence. But either way, let's dive into Lake Murray here. And I'm going to break down, give you an idea for those. Again, I did an entire video about Lake Murray if you want to learn more about living on Lake Murray. But to give you an idea, it's 50,000 acres, right? It's a lot of lakes, and you have all these fingers in it, right? It's not like a cut shoreline. Again, it was Saluda River. They dammed it up right here. It's a hydroelectric dam. I have a lot of people ask that. It is not a nuclear power dam. It's a hydroelectric, and so it creates power for the area. Saluda River right here. There's a dam walk right here. Super cool to check out when you're in the area. There's a park where you can park and walk for free. Right next to it is actually the park where you can come and hang out on the beach and things like that. And then the boat launch is on this side over here. Again, I dive into all that on that Lake Murray video. If you're interested in Lake Murray, I talk about where those other ones are as well. But either way, so you have Lake Murray here. It's 4 different counties. Like I talked about, basically right down this section here is kind of the split of it. And you have Saluda County this way, Newberry County this way. You have Lexington and Richland County this way, and Lexington this way. And so that's kind of the way they break down our different area when it comes to pricing. And you have a ton of different lake neighborhoods around the entire lake section. From the Lexington side, I've had people buy on, all the way to the Irmo side, out towards Chapin. So many different places, and even had some buy out on the lake and lake neighborhoods out this direction as well. But let me give an idea of pricing so you understand. So let's start with lake neighborhoods. And so I isolated just those on lake neighborhoods. They had a boat ramp. Some of them do have slips and things like that, but I isolated, they at least had to have a boat ramp in there to help isolate those neighborhoods. What I could find around the entire lake, to give you an idea, is that on average, pricing came in around $475,000 to live in those lake neighborhoods. Now, with that said, they come in as low as the 200s if you're willing to push out a little bit more, and obviously depend on the square footage of the house. There's a lot of variety around the lake when it comes to that pricing. But let me give you an idea of the actual pricing when it comes to the different areas of the lake. And let me clear this so you kind of understand which area I'm talking about and not get confused here. So we'll get kicked off with the Saluda side of the lake. Like I said, you're basically talking this side of the lake right here. And so on the Saluda side, and this is kind of what's closed, right? Obviously active, who knows what it closes for, right? I can put my house up for $1 million, but that doesn't mean that's what it's worth. So either way, Saluda County, what I found is homes closing from 825 square feet up to 7,934, from 225,000 up to 1.45 million. But the average in this section right here came in at see if you can read my chicken scratch, 685,000, which price per square foot, I have a lot of people ask, what's the price per square foot? On average, it was about $286 a square foot. Next, we're going to talk about the Newberry section, which is going to be this section up here. This area started to grow a lot more. Developers have started to push out this way. Stewart's Landing, you might have seen some advertisements. You've been to the area. I know they run Facebook ads against everybody out that way. And so we're starting to see a lot more growth. It actually pushes it a lot higher. I think I drew this way too low. But either way, Newberry County, what we're talking about in there, and homes sold between 852 square feet and 4,161 square feet. Pricing from 335,000 up to 1.65 million. Average in this area was 715,000. That's a 7, that's a 1, that's a 5, trust me. And that price per square foot was about $380 a square foot. Now let's move on to the Chapin, Irmo, Ballantyne, this area right in this section. Basically right here, even actually all the way down to here. And so this area, what we saw was home selling from 1,144 square feet up to 9,986 square feet, from 365,000 up to $3 million. The average though was 1 million. I feel like Vanna White, pushing the numbers up here. 27,000. Why couldn't it be a flat number? Make my life easy. 880,000. That's the average, people. So I know a lot of people reach out and like, oh, I love the lake. And I'm like, what's your budget, right? This is the average home on the lake. So if you want something more, like I'm just being real. I just want to set the right perception, because a lot of times to be 100% honest, that's why I make these videos. A lot of times, a lot of people's perception does not meet reality, right? Like I said, in the beginning, we look at these beautiful homes online. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, look at that price. And they come out and they're like, this isn't what I thought it was, Brandon, right? And so I wanted to create a reality of what things are. Some people, this is going to make them fall in love with the other. Some people, this is going to scare them away and be like, never mind, it's not what I thought it was. And when you combine these with the driving videos I've done, where I actually drive all these routes, right? Down Highway 6, down 378, from Chapin out to Lexington, then you get a good idea of like, okay. And that way you can be more confident in your decision when you say, Brandon, we want to live in Irmo. Brandon, we want to live in Red Bank, right? This helps with that confidence by doing these different things. Either way, let me continue on. Lexington side of the lake, over here. So what we're talking about there was homes from 650 square feet up to 8,198 square feet. Pricing from 390,000 up to 3 million. Their average was 1,013,140 average on the Lexington side of Lake Murray. Their price per square foot was $382. And if I didn't say it on the Chapin side, I forget if I did, it was $330 a square foot. So this kind of gives you an idea. And again, I talked about where all the shopping centers are, right? 378 over here, over here. You have some shopping in downtown Chapin, a little bit there, right? And then you have some down here in Lexington. This is where some of this pricing comes from, right? Some people like it, trust me. I was recently showing out here and someone's like, we really love this area. Look, we're not in the position where we need to drive to schools every day. We don't have kids in the house. We don't need to go to the grocery store 3 times during the week because all of a sudden our kid wants a Pop-Tart, right? All those types of things. And so they're like, I like this. This is more quaint, quiet. My money goes further. This is awesome. But for those that are like, look, I gotta go to Columbia all the time for doctor's appointments. I gotta run my kids to school. We gotta go to the grocery store at least 3 times a week. Like, this is gonna be a challenge. This is a long commute back this way. And there's other areas, don't get me wrong. You can go up to Prosperity. There's a little bit there, even up to the Newberry area this way, head down to Saluda. But most people tend to fall back this way just because everything is here. Like I said, the one and only Costco in our area is right here as I continue to scribble like crazy. And then downtown Columbia, for those that have to get down there for, the hospital systems, there are some along these corridors up here and over here, right? But out this way, again, hope this gives you a better idea of the area and a breakdown of the area to help you better understand this. But again, reach out to us because we can help narrow this down for you. Again, I've had people that were like looking at based on houses, right? Love this house, love this house. They come to the area and they go to those houses and they say, whoa, Brandon, this is not the area. And I said, let's go back to what your priorities are. What are your priorities? What are your main things that you're trying to accomplish? You want to be close to this. Cool. Let's focus on these areas. We can help do that because this is what we focus on. This is what we've learned over the years of helping people relocate, as well being transplants, going through this myself. And as I said, I've done some driving videos about these areas. So make sure you watch those so you can actually see what it's like on the ground in these areas. And I point out, hey, there's the shop, there's the restaurant, there's the grocery store, those types of things. So check those out to see the driving aspect of this.